Welcome, Echoes. Thank you for choosing Echoes of a Broken Community Pod. You are the voices, the truths, the community that continues to hold the stories. I'm really appreciative of your time and thank you again for choosing us. This is episode 1. I wish I had some kind of foghorn or drum roll, just because I am so excited because this episode explores how unhealed trauma, especially how complex traumas manifest in our lives and how that affects visionary leaders, particularly Black women. I'm going to always speak from a place of what I know based off of my lived experiences, and I hope that you do the same when you share your story. Let's get right into it. So I'm currently grappling with what it means to feel unseen or misunderstood, and the toll that that invisibility takes on my mental health. I'm trying to figure out navigating the pain while still caring others, while still working, being a mom, being a wife, being a community leader, building spaces that, are safe spaces for us to heal, whether individually or together, while managing my own healing and leading from a place of self-awareness rather than burnout. Okay. That was hard. And I'm always going to tell you when things are hard for me because I want you to see how difficult it is so that you're able to feel a little bit more vulnerable and share. But that was hard because I feel like I'm done. Like I'm in a place where I no longer want to do anything. So I know that that's beyond burnout. I've realized that unlearning has been my way of fighting back, always researching and trying to understand everything mental health and how things affect us has been my go-to. I don't think I highlighted this in the intro pod, but this episode will definitely shed some light on my passion, which is everything mental health, and why it became a passion for me later on in life, especially because I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was younger. In my 20s, I always thought I wanted to be a teacher when I was a kid, and then here I am, not a teacher. Back to unlearning, one thing I realized is I'm not allowing myself the space to not only unlearn, but to hold space for my wins, for my losses, and um, everything in between. I just keep moving. And what I want to learn and what I'm trying to do is learn to be still, learn to accept what is and be in the moment, the joys, the fears, the everything, just feel all the emotions. You know what I mean? Like I have to get better and better um at doing that. I think that that contributes to my burnout because I just keep working. By the way, unlearning is hard, definitely hard work. And I don't want to do it most times. I'm just like, whatever, just live, be better, be great, help out. But unlearning has really allowed me to live in this time thinking of things differently. And sometimes I just want to live in the funk. And I don't know why we always feel like we have to be happy, be positive, have all these fake smiles and all these fake, stories about all the things that we are when we're really not. We're in a funk, we're depressed. The world is just in a state of complete uncertainty, and it doesn't allow us to just sit with it, whatever it is. And I'm learning that sitting with my feelings has really helped me understand my feelings in such a deeper way. So I began my healing journey in my 30s. I know I don't look a day over 21, but I will be 44 in a couple of months. I I remember I had an epiphany during an argument with my husband. I think my third son was already born at this time. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't arguing with him. I was arguing with my dad. it was just super weird, how like all of these just flashbacks and all these things were happening in that moment. And I just was like screaming and bawling and crying. And I know he thought I was crazy, like, what is wrong with you? But that's when I realized. And like I said, by that time, I was already a mother to three, a wife. My youngest was actually a newborn. And I found myself at a crossroads. Um, do I continue to keep feeling this way, to keep living with all of this hurt and unresolved, trauma? I don't want to keep using that word, but that's what it is. Do I keep living in that? Or do I try to figure out what in the world is wrong, what the problem or problems are, and try to better myself? So I started taking classes. I remember I said, hey, I want to go back to college. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy, clearly. Mom, three kids, in my 30s. It was like, also, I also had my own business and I was running that. So that was definitely a bit a bit much, but I knew what I wanted to do. I had already made up my mind. I really thought about it. So I started taking classes to understand why I was the way that I was. Why do people think and act the way that they do? Why they make certain decisions, have different ideologies, and why is my favorite color teal and pink, and why is yours black? Even though at times I do tell people that my favorite color is black, like my soul. But that's a story for another day. That actually came from one of my coworkers, and I just thought it was just hilarious. But, I began to see the light at the end of the tunnel as I started taking these classes. I obviously eventually, whoop whoop, graduated with my master's in psych with a concentration in mental health. And, I am in no way what you call healed. I don't think that anyone is healed, even going through healing journeys. I think that we're always learning and evolving and unlearning, and things change, generations pass, and you just keep learning. But um, the point is, I had the knowledge, I had the words, I finally had, the ability to match up how I was feeling with, and I don't want to say diagnosis because I don't really like that, but I just had the language around, I'm not just sad, there's something deeper going on. I understood why I felt abandoned, why my love language was what it was, why I was so helpful to others, and just so much more. So remember I said to you that this is not going to just be me talking at you or just telling you my stories. I really want this to be like, and I'm going to look it up, but I really want this to be like little lessons that you also are able to take little nuggets from. And so I guess that's the teacher in me. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a definition for this lesson before we move on. So, like I said, as we listen to not only my story, but the stories of others, this one in particular is about the invisible weight of complex trauma and what the difference is from other traumas. And I'm just going to read the definition really quick. So, the invisible weight of complex trauma, or complex PTSD or CPTSD, refers to the deeply ingrained, often subtle, yet pervasive impact of prolonged or repeated trauma, impacting self-perception, like how you feel about what you see in the mirror. Or, for one, I'll give you a quick funny, and I'm sure a lot of other people are like this, but when I'm editing these podcasts, I hate to listen to myself. I just have all these things in my head, and other people are like, oh my gosh, you sound so amazing. Or, I really love your voice. You have a great radio voice, whatever. But I hate it. And it's just me, being in my own head. But that self-perception, or back to the definition, emotional regulation and relationships, leaving individuals feeling burdened and struggling to function and find joy in life. When I read that, I just knew immediately that that embodied everything that I've ever gone through, that I've ever felt. For those of you listening and not watching, even though I said I wasn't going to cry, here we are. Okay. But I learned during this process that I became a survivor. I'm going to say that again so it's clear, that I became a survivor who overfunctions who strives for perfection in everything that I do. As I said in the intro brought it, I know I was all over the place, but that was one of the things that if you remember and if you heard it and if you didn't, go back and listen. It's a little of everything that we're going to be talking about, but I'm a perfectionist in everything that I do and I take on way too much. And I completely push myself to the limit because it's what I learned is my coping mechanism. I originally thought it was like me just wanting to stay busy so that I'm not in my own thoughts. I hate being in my head. Gosh, stop crying. Anyway, it was a coping mechanism. And I don't know, I just needed to sit with that for a minute when I originally realized that that's what I was doing. Because like everyone else, I'm sure that you, like me, just thought that you were ambitious or just extremely kind and wanted to be there for everyone and help everyone. And I was able to handle it, still feel like I can handle it and um, handle anything that came my way. I don't need anyone because people are going to let you down anyway. So just keep pushing and do the things on my own. But again, I understood after reading and researching that it stemmed from my unmet emotional needs in childhood, which I realized why I would get so anxious when I felt like people misunderstood me. Doesn't mean I was misunderstood. I just felt like it. I felt like this one's hard, y'all. I can't stop crying. It doesn't mean I am misunderstood or I was being misunderstood. I just felt like it. And so I over explained and tried to get people to understand me. I need a moment. It's just crazy because, never let them see you sweat. Never let them see you cry. And I can't believe I'm sharing this with you guys, but this is another part of that journey I keep talking to you about that I'm on. So I think that I'm tired of people seeing me as this, like, I can handle anything hardcore individual. Like, I mean, I know I'm a badass and definitely don't come for me because I will come for you, but I will cry later. um, or I'll call my sister because she's definitely always been that for me. But anyway, again, I'm gonna pivot for a second so I can get myself together. And I'll give you a quote. If you don't know by now, I absolutely love quotes. They are everywhere. Let me see if I can turn this a little bit. I absolutely, they help me try to understand something on a deeper level. They get me to think of something differently and or remind me of what my goal is or whatever. I just love quotes. That being said, the reference quote that I'd like to share with you is their nervous systems were shaped by experiences of being unseen. And I don't know where that quote comes from, and maybe I should look it up. I just know I remember that. And I actually have an exercise for you. And again, I'm pivoting a little bit just so that I can get my bearings and then we can get back to like, stories and just some more feelings. But here's an exercise for you. Like I said, when was the first time you realized you were carrying someone else's pain? Like, and how does that affect you at home, at work, in relationships, in general? What about, and this is like really important. I would love to hear your feedback on this. What about if you're in a leadership position? I've always found myself anywhere I go, and this is not like patting myself on the back, whatever. Just I've always found myself in a leadership position or finding my way to the front, right? I've been having lots of conversations with other leaders and colleagues, and everybody's kind of feeling that isolation. And I don't know why we're all feeling it at the same time. I have some theories, but we'll wait for another podcast for that. But the loneliness of holding space for others while feeling like no one is holding space for you is the worst. And I'm finding that I'm not the only person going through this right now. Like I'm not the only strong friend or the friend you can always count on, but you can't count on others. And the strong friend narrative is harmful. It it causes so much anxiety in me anyway. It might cause something else in you, but I also feel like it also causes me to just feel like I don't need anybody. I don't want any friends. Clearly, you don't know what friendship means, and I just isolate myself. Yeah. So I've been asking myself, how has my leadership begun to trigger old survival responses, right? Like going back to how I felt in different situations of my childhood, of when I was a teenager, in my 20s, etc. Oh, sorry, I forgot I'm still in my 20s. But yeah, I wonder how that is for you as well. Does it, if you're, in a leadership position, does it trigger anything for you, like people pleasing, hyper independence, emotional disconnection? Yeah, so let me know. What, if any, triggers do you have? Um, this podcast is not even close to being over, and I've been doing major mental gymnastics trying to do this, trying to keep focused and trying to not just break down every 2 seconds, but we're going to get through this. Anyway, another question is, how do leaders go through balancing clarity and confidence while secretly feeling what I just said, like anxious, doubting their voice, that imposter syndrome everybody's talking about lately. I love when people learn new words. It's like all the rage every single time. But um, again, bracing for being misunderstood, mainly for me, that's like the main thing, because I hate being misunderstood. I hate people feeling like they're walking away from me, knowing me less, or not understanding like what I was really trying to say. That emotional labor of being a natural born leader, of unpacking the emotional tax of constantly being expected to show up with grace, especially when you're in the middle of unraveling yourself, and all of the stuff that's going on inside. Yeah, talk to me. Tell me, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with all the systems, the family, the community, the institutions? And I'm gonna say this. I originally was just like, should I really go there right now and get so deep and heavy immediately? But this is how I'm feeling, right? And I'm not hiding who I am. So I can't hide that I'm a Black woman and that I lead. Like when I walk through the door, that's the first thing you see. You don't Black woman. So how that affects us as how we lead without ever asking how we're really doing, how the community, how other leaders, how everyone expects us to show up without getting paid. Ooh, let's talk about that. But I think that should be something that we have a conversation with several other people as well, and we'll invite other individuals for that. But show up without getting paid, or constantly ask for our opinion, advice, but never give us the credit. Once they actually take that advice or opinion. Clearly, I've been through some things, but the more I talk to myself and with y'all, the more I realize it's not only outsiders and this podcast, this movement that I'm hoping to create came from this. It's insiders too. It's people that you trust or that you should trust or that you think you trust. Um, People that look like me, um, who hate on me, who hate on you. I've heard the stories, so I know it's not just a me thing, and they doing the most. But in this moment, I'm doing lots of affirming. Lately, I'm finding the strength in setting boundaries, seeking softness, and just being vulnerable. Choosing slowness. I've never given up so much work or just have told myself, you can do that tomorrow, shut the computer down at 9 or 10 o'clock. I'm usually on my computer till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning most days. But I'm choosing slowness. I'm choosing to interact with my family more. I'm choosing joy. I'm choosing the word no, which is a whole word, y'all. And I'm learning that. I'm not taking on more than I can bear. I don't care what people think about me. And you'll see more of that, especially if you're like in my orbit and in my community. I'm not taking on things that I feel as though I'm not going to be good at. I'm tired of doing things half-assed where everybody's like, oh, that's amazing. And I'm just like, it's not. And I know that's my perfection issue, but in order for me to feel like I'm doing something and I'm doing it well, I need to do less. that's just something I'm learning. So I'm cool with that. And I'm learning to see that taking on more than I can bear and allowing myself to see my worth in monetary value as well, because why not? Everyone else does. And school wasn't free. I still got student loans. I still got bills. I still got a house to take care of, as everyone else does. So this is what healing looks like in real time. Crying, laughing, talking to y'all, um, processing with y'all at the same time as I'm figuring things out. But it's an active commitment, and I've made that commitment. I'm excited for this new part in my journey. And I'm really learning, like I said, the gift of pausing, listening to my body. Oh my gosh, that is new for me. I just keep going until I'm dead or just can't move anymore. And I've been sick because I overwork myself, not even because I really um am sick. And my body's begged me to slow down, and I'm starting to do that. I'm letting go of the pressure to be understood by everyone, and that is hard. And the freedom is amazing. And being honest about everything, especially your capacity. Another quote is, you don't owe everyone access to you, to your healing, but you do owe yourself honesty in your journey. I love that quote. I need to start figuring out who said these things, but these are just things that I just kind of pick up along the way. But I'm gonna actually, before I get to my call to action, I'm gonna tell you a bit of an origin story about myself that I was supposed to tell you initially, but just started breaking down. And this might get me all riled up again, but I think it's important to understand who I am and how this and why this healing journey was necessary, where it began, where it stemmed from, and why I'm so passionate about certain things. And you'll get to know me as time moves on. But I'm going to talk about my parents' divorce. They divorced when I was 12 years old, and um, I remember moving out of what was my home at the time in secret. My dad left for work, and my mom immediately had uncles and friends just pull up with the moving truck. And we were out before he came back home, and we were at my grandmother's house that wasn't too far away. And once the evening came and we were all moved in, I was lying on what would be my new bed, which would be a mattress on the floor of my aunt's room, while I'm sure my mother was just trying to figure it all out. As a kid, 12-year-old, I had no idea. I knew I just was angry, sad, didn't know what to feel. Definitely angry at my mom. I didn't know what was going on, but I remember being in my aunt's room and my dad coming over and just sitting outside, bawling his eyes out, and me just thinking, why is my mom doing this? And just being so frustrated because as a daddy's girl at the time, I couldn't understand why my mother was being so mean, why she would leave him, why she would make him cry. Stupid, naive young girl who eventually understood after being in relationships and now being a wife. It ain't easy. And knowing the backstory of his infidelity as I got older, and we'll get into that in other podcasts, but just made me angrier with him as time moved on. But in this moment, though, as a child, a 12-year-old child, I had no context at, or any idea of the complexity of what was happening around me and or what my mother was going through. All I knew is that my whole world was being turned upside down. And that was the beginning of my CPTSD, my complex trauma. And I didn't diagnose myself. Um, that definitely was the many therapists that I've seen, and also just me researching and reading. But I want to invite you, as we are wrapping up, to reflect. What's one story you've never told because you were feared of being judged or misunderstood, or just fear of vulnerability like I am? Share them with me if you feel comfortable. I encourage voice notes, or anonymous submissions at echoesofbrokencommunity@gmail.com. You can DM us on Instagram at Echoes of a Broken Community. Um, I've gotten some amazing stories already, and I'm just so happy to bring on some guests and to listen to other people's stories and to develop this and to really make this a healing community. These conversations are going to be amazing around motherhood, fatherhood, relationships, and so much more. I want to remind you that in these moments where you feel or have felt invisible and continue to show up, you don't have to. You don't have to. You can just be as fulfilled if you say no. This has become my hobby, but I've been like thinking of different things I can do to fill my time that I find joyous, that I find will fulfill me in that same way. That is not toxic though. So if it's not full bodied yes, then it's a no. And that is a whole word, like I told you earlier. Thank you for listening, for breathing with me, for crying with me. And I urge you to continue to find your voice. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe, wherever you listen to your podcast. I am now on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. I think that's it. And I'll get this right. I'll probably put some notes up or something, but I just want this to be super authentic. And you know what to do. We're definitely on Instagram. Share what you can, share what you want. Don't share. Be selfish. Do whatever. But I think the more we have in our community, the more connections, the more stories, the easier it is to heal and to understand that we're not alone out here. So that is my main objective with this podcast. And I'm so happy that you, again, are listening wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I want to thank you and welcome you to the community.